Yeah, so the first thing I'd like for the viewers, not the listeners, to notice about tonight's podcast visually is that Pete Rollick is not in bed. He's in a chair. What are you drinking? Oh, Miller Lite.
Pete, I thought
What
you'd
is
get
wrong with you?
exactly what I showed you on Thursday. I thought you'd pick some of that up.
So we went to look for it, and we were told very specifically that is a winter beer.
I'll have to send you some because
Well,
DuClaw
How can you
Brewery.
possibly drink it in Florida then?
Yeah,
Or
exactly,
Texas.
Matt.
So Emma Gibbon is our guest today. Hey, Emma, how are you?
Hello.
I really thought that you'd be drinking. I just saw yesterday. There's a Drink in Yellow beer from Peterson Games.
There is. My wife is getting in and out of stores very quickly, so she's not looking around for the weird stuff that I might want to drink. She grabs me what she knows I'll tolerate. And I have 2 more of these, and then I have a whole case of Leinenkugel lemon shandy.
Well, what's the hurry going through the store? Is there something going on, or that I should be aware of?
Well, yeah. Have you been living under a rock, Davis? If there's nothing going on that you're aware of, where's my freaking package of books?
Yeah, I'll get to that, and I'll get to that haircut. I just want to point out, Rich, anyone who makes a snarky remark about my hair tonight again is going to get a 50% pay decrease. So
you can't cut pennies in half.
You got a penny from me?
Not in a while.
So Emma just has a collection out called Dark Blood Comes from the Feet, which is one of the greatest titles ever. So hang on, and let me put you on the screen here. Go ahead, do that again. Thanks. Yeah, Dark Blood Comes from the Feet. Nice cover too.
Yeah.
So before we get to Emma, we'll do our usual introductions, and then we'll talk to her. I don't know where John Langan is, but like I said, he's always late. All right. Yeah. Pete Rollick, you can start.
What? I'm sneezing here, man. Hold on. Okay.
Go ahead now.
I'm verklempt.
The professionalism is what usually the comment I get on this podcast.
You get what you pay for.
Damn straight.
Yeah.
So,
I'm Pete Rollick. I write crappy books. I watch bad movies, mostly so that you don't have to.
You're blaming us to fulfill your own desires. That's really,
Yes. Yep. You're absolutely right. I blame everybody but myself.
Well, you fit right in.
Now, it may explain why I've been married 5 times, but
really,
maybe
I didn't know that. Rich.
Hey, I'm Rich. I also watch bad movies, but otherwise I'm here to enjoy Mike's flowing silver hair because I have none, which is why I'm wearing a hat, so you can't see that.
Yeah. Matt Carpenter.
Hi, I'm Matt. I help run eZine Movie Night, which is every Saturday just about. You can see posts on the eZine Facebook page.
It's a group.
We watched Dark Skies last night, and we're picking one for next week. But I also give out prizes. We have a great prize today. This is the Centipede Press mini art portfolio for Harry O. Morris. If you do not have Halloween in Arkham, a lot of the prints are included in here, although they are small because it's a small book. But this is a gorgeous hardcover. So send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com and put Morris in the subject heading. And in a few weeks, we'll pick a winner.
I thought we had an agreement. You would run the really good books by the panel first and see if anybody wants.
Do you guys think this is a good book?
Well, I mean,
okay,
I haven't read it, but it looks pretty nice. Not to judge a book by its cover.
I have a stack of books to give away sitting right outside my study, and I picked the first one on the top.
Okay. So Emma, unless you agree to write more stories with featuring the Black Shucks Tavern, am I saying that right? Black Shuck Tavern.
Yeah.
Then I can't continue with this because that's such a great story. I have to rope you into writing more of those. So.
Yeah, you're not the first person actually to say that. I've had a couple of people have been like, you could do a full series of those, and I do like the idea of, like, I don't want to give too much away, but the idea of a woman and her sidekick that's a massive supernatural dog does appeal to me. So perhaps I haven't signed anything, but maybe there will be more.
Well, I'll have to go with that. So can you, unlike some of the writers that we interview on here, I don't know you personally until now, recently. Can you tell us a bit about yourself? You can't really answer this very succinctly. Nobody can, but a bit about you and your life, and then writing, that kind of thing. This is your first collection, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Yorkshire in England, and I have lived in Maine for 10 years now. I moved over here because I married someone from here. I've been a librarian since I came here. So when I moved to Maine 10 years ago, I changed home. I changed careers because I was a school teacher prior to that. I changed everything. So I ran away to Maine, became a librarian, live in the woods. At the bottom of our street is the railway track that I believe inspired Stephen King to write The Body, because he went to high school near where we live. So it's a good place to land for me.
When you lean forward, it sounds really good. So
okay, I'll lean forward then.
Yeah, thanks. Inspired Stephen King's what?
The Body.
Oh, The Body, right.
The Body, yeah. So the railway track that inspired The Body is at the bottom of our street, where I'm like a minute away from where I'm sat. As far as writing goes, I've been writing far longer than I want to admit. I've been writing since I was a teenager. I started with really bad poetry when I was a teenager, and then I've been writing ever since. But I only really I think it took me an embarrassingly long time to know this, but it was about, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. I sat, my husband writes as well, and I sat down very seriously and I said to him, I think I'm a horror writer. And he said, well, I've always thought you were a horror writer. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me? And he was like, well, I thought you knew. So all this time, so after that, I thought, well, you know what, I should try and get published. And it's been like a snowball after that. I started submitting poetry and short stories places, and I started getting published. And
well, nobody's told King he's a horror writer yet either. He thinks he's a sci-fi writer, right? So.
Yeah. So since then, it just like snowballed, and I started getting published, and I think I was like before I was trying to be the wrong type of writer. I wasn't being myself really, but since I got more comfortable about it's been going really well. So yeah,
that's one of the keys, isn't it, to so many creative things or life directions, being yourself. Hey John, good to see you.
Hey Mike, what's up?
Not too much. This isn't like submitting a story, okay? I'm kidding.
Yeah, I've got nothing. Yeah, I just.
I'm kidding.
Hi Emma.
hello.
John Langan is on the show. He doesn't probably have to introduce himself because everybody knows who he is. Oh,
but you say no about German Godzilla. Okay, sorry.
Maybe
sorry.
not.
It's Emma's show. It's not German Godzilla's show.
Yeah, you're going to be a guest in, what, a couple of weeks or something?
No, not at all. I would never be on this show. Come on,
It's a
man.
good thing I write this stuff down. August 23rd, John Langan. Shit.
Oh man, that guy.
Maybe
I
we could
hate him.
Bump that
He
to
owes
the
me
new
money.
year or something. Yeah.
That would make more sense. Oh, nice, Pete Rollick. You're
What?
King Caesar.
Hang on, Pete. Let me pin you on for the. Oh my God.
You know what people be liking very, very much at night?
Oh my God.
I don't even.
Headlights.
I don't know
Never-
what that means.
Yeah, I missed that. Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh.
I just wanted to say, John, Emma, John. Maybe you guys know each other. I don't know.
We met at ReaderCon last year. Yeah.
And then Haverhill? Yeah, Haverhill last year as well.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All of that is like a distant dream, isn't it? It's just like a pleasant, like, oh, that was, look, we were, we could talk to people. I mean, face to face. And
Yeah. Move around in crowds. It's like a different world.
Yeah.
Rich, you were saying something right before the show, before Emma got into the room, and I thought it was really interesting, and I had actually, in my list of questions, had a variation on it. So do you want to address that to Emma?
Yeah, sure. I noticed that, from the very first story on, the sentences are very clipped, and it's very active voice, and it's really hard to make that work, especially given when you read, like Steven Pinker talks about the sense of style in terms of writing in the 21st century, and he says explicitly that telling writers not to write in the passive we now know is bad advice because of brain science, except you've managed to turn that around and make it work very well in the active. And I know how difficult that really is, but the way you do it, it draws you right into the story. And I think, Mike had mentioned earlier, that it really works well for the short story. Is that something you really strive for? Is that active voice?
It's not something that I consciously do. And I think the reason is that I have, this sounds way scarier than it is. I have what they call aphantasia, and they've only just started figuring this out. And it's basically when you don't have a visual imagination. My imagination is not visual. So if someone says, imagine an elephant, most people close their eyes, they can see an elephant, but I can't. I don't see images. So I generally imagine in dialogue or in like concepts, almost like I can feel a 3D 3D object of a thing. So when I'm imagining and when I'm writing a story, it's almost a bit, it's like playing a role, like a ventriloquism or acting. So those sentences, because I like put myself in the character in that way, it comes quite naturally to be talking in an active way, because it's like I am that person rather than listening to them.
That's really fascinating. So an active voice really allows your mind to roam wider than, let's say, a passive voice would give you then, huh?
Yeah. Because I'm moving forward as I'm imagining it happening. So yeah, I believe that's it. It's not so much consciously crafted; it's more like how it works for me.
And what was the name of that you said?
It's called aphantasia.
Aphantasia? Am I saying
aphantasia?
That right?
Yeah, I might be pronouncing it wrong. APHAN.
Not to make it about me, but just briefly, it's not that to that degree with me, but I'm more of an audio person. Mm-hmm. Even being half deaf, it's very easy for me to recognize someone's voice or a particular sound, or I heard this song 30 years ago that they're playing, I know what it is, or a lot of variations on that, even more obscure. So yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's why I tend to favor first person as well. And I never really noticed until I put this collection together, and I realized that majority of them are first person.
Yeah, my
Now,
variation on that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Rich.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, is it? How do you deal with, say, visual art? How do you process that? Does aphantasia affect that?
No, it's just the imagination. So my undergraduate degree is English and art history, which is strange now I think about it. But no, it doesn't affect that. It's more, and it doesn't affect dreams either. I dream in color and images. It's just the conjuring up things. Someone mentioned in the chat just then about don't think about the white cat, but I might be able to conjure up, like if I close my eyes, I might be able to conjure up like a white blob, maybe. But I don't have much control over it.
Does your poetry then reflect that? The words that you choose, is that reflective of that same kind of requirement for your imagination to work then?
Yeah, I've not thought about it, but I imagine so. Yes. Yeah, because it's the only way I can do it. I spent years asking people, like, and it must have been strange, but I'm like, no, but how do you think? Like, how do you, because I couldn't understand that other people saw a different thing, or it's hard to imagine how other people think. So I spent a lot of time asking people, which is clearly not strange at all, asking people this all the time, because when I read up on this aphantasia thing, it was like a light bulb, like, oh yeah, that is how I think. People's reaction to it is quite funny. Like a lot of, I've seen people talk about it online, and they're like, but I would rather die than not be able to imagine in such a way. And it's like, well, I'm fine, Or you get people saying, well, I see a full movie and with sound and effects, and I'm like, well, yeah, great, thanks.
So does that make it so are those the types of stories you like to read then with an active, that is too much passive voice? If you're reading a story, if it's not as dynamic, say, the wording, is it harder for you to process a story?
No? I don't. It's weird because there's a lot of writers who are very descriptive, who I like very much, like Donna Tartt, for example, and I don't get bored with that. So I think I just imagine the way that I imagine images just like everybody else does, but I don't see them. I feel them more than see them.
And I noticed the music that you referenced in several of the stories is very hard hitting, right? The Dead Kennedys, right? or the Bad Brains, all things I listened to when I was a teenager as well. And especially in the very first story, I think there were some Guns N' Roses in there. There was some Bon Jovi even.
It has to be loud. Also, apparently, I'm really into clapping in stories. I realize that. Like, if they got clapping in it, yeah, that'll do. I like that one. But yeah, I don't listen to very soft music at all, really. Yeah.
How would for music, how would like symphonic music, how would you process that? And I apologize, but this is fascinating to me, this kind of condition.
No problem.
How would you process that?
What kind of music?
Symphonic, like classical music, Bach, Beethoven,
or movie soundtracks.
Movie soundtracks.
Movie soundtracks I quite like as background music. But when it comes to there's certain classical music that makes me very emotional, and I'll get choked up. I'm at the library that I work at. Before the plague, we had a music concert every year from the Bowdoin College. It's like young stars of music, and being in a room with some of those performers, like it's super emotional, and I get tears in my eyes. But if I had but quite often like the classic, music, I'll get bored. I won't be listening to it. I'll walk off. So I'm not a huge fan. If I had it on in the background, if I was working, I'd probably find it more irritating than soothing.
So you'd rather be listening to your style of music that you like with lyrics, not symphonic without.
Yeah.
When you're writing, I mean, yeah. Well, congratulations on your wonderful review from NPR, by the way. So
thank you.
I just want to read the first paragraph here. Horror isn't many readers' first choice during times like these, and while the prospect of wallowing in the mercury end of the emotional spectrum isn't exactly high on the list of anyone's self-care regimen right now, it's interesting how this is I'm not quoting this, but it's interesting how many of us that we still want to read horror no matter what's going on. Not no matter what's going on right now, I mean. To continue, NPR, there's a lot to be said for confronting our demons on the printed page as well as in real life. Emma Gibbon gets it. The main, by way of England author's debut collection of short stories, Dark Blood Comes from the Feet. I like that title if I haven't mentioned it a few million times yet. Is an assortment of 17 scalding, acidic tales that eat away at society's thin veneer of normalcy, convention, and even reality. At the same time, these horrific confections leave a sweet aftertaste of humanity. And certainly, well, better said than I can review it, but I really do love your book. And a lot of collections and anthologies, I'm sure most people would agree with me, there are stories that are good and great, and there's stories that that one didn't really resonate with me really very well. But I have to say that's not the case with your book. I really love them all. So
Thank you.
Rich is nodding his head off here too. So
Well, I think that, Mike, this book, I know you love quiet horror,
oh yeah, geez,
and this book hits you right in your soft spot.
yeah,
This is really, really subtle. The one that sticks in my head the most is Surviving My Parents, where, the whole process, the idea of what's going on in the story is horrific. And nothing really horrific ever happens in the story. But it's telegraphed. It's going to happen. But you never bring it
off
front
screen
on the
yeah.
page.
Quiet horror despite the punk metals,
Well, yeah. And yeah.
But I think you're right, Pete. So
you should love this.
I do, and not to force any labels on you, but I hadn't thought about it till now why I like it so much. I mean, there's many reasons, but Pete's right. It's yeah. So I really love the book, and I can tell, especially I love a book when I'm reading it Kindle version and I keep highlighting stuff. So. Because that's so easy to do with Kindle, and then you can look at all your notes and highlights later, which is really nice. So from the porch, which I believe is the first story, I think.
Isn't it?
No, it's the dancer one. The first story
the
is
dancer one. Yes. Yeah. I wonder if in the past, this is from Porch, I'd have been burnt at the stake for having a familiar. I probably would have been burnt at the stake for a lot of things. I mean, what a great sentence. It's a couple of sentences. So,
what's so? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
Just to hop on what you were saying about Porch. What's so marvelous about Porch? Without, I mean, maybe this is vaguely spoilery, so But
shut your 30 seconds. But yeah,
right. You get to the end, and you can read it one of two ways. Let's put it that way. You can read it two ways, really. Right, so
in a horrific way, a non-horrific way, you mean?
In a supernatural way and a non-supernatural madness kind of way.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult to do. I for me anyway, it's very difficult to do so effectively in such a compressed space of time. I will admit, I thought it was going to be Judy at the end, but. Perhaps there are more horrible things in store for her later on, and but I did. I mean, it's interesting because Mike is saying this, and I'm thinking, yeah, but and I kind of agree that there's something. I don't know if I think of it as quiet though, because the orphanage story, man, there's like there's
a bit of splatterpunk right there, right?
I was thinking, I said I have to say to Emma on the podcast that I'm imagining this as a Twilight Zone episode, and people would be, kids would be the classic Doctor Who hiding behind the couch in that one particular scene, the first one, when the first person gets killed. Anyway, go on, John. Sorry.
Well, just that there's something there too, though, that's so that's so effective and so striking about it. This notion of kind of sanctuary and welcomeness, openness, welcoming, as opposed to obviously the intolerance in the town. And I thought one of the things that was fascinating there, and I'm not sure if this is. I feel like this shows up in a lot of your stories, is that they're these sort of cusps of change. They're these kinds of moments where the narrator in the orphanage story is now she's going to be probably in charge.
I felt that too.
Although the nun she's still breathing, which is good. She may not be up for the challenge, and now the relation with the town is going to be a bit different. It's going to be, you've seen what can happen. Don't come back here again unless you want more of it. And it really had this sort of Guillermo del Toro feel to it. The sort of like the things get weirder and weirder, but we all really like the monsters. The monsters are much more fun and they're much sweeter. And it's a little tentacle or a beak between friends, right?
Well, it's not like they're going after the people in the town. That'd be
all they want
far
is
less sympathetic.
Yeah, all they want is what we want. They want love. They want affection. They don't want to be brutalized. The strippers in limbo thing, I just kept thinking, I could imagine certain guys reading this going, why aren't you talking about their boobs? But I also thought that there was something there, to the importance that recognition plays in that story, recognizing, and I thought that was actually also quite fascinating, to start with the supernatural premise. Haven't you noticed that we never go home? Haven't you noticed that you never go to the bathroom? Haven't you where did all the tips go? That we know right from, we look at the title and we're like, oh yeah, okay. And that strikes me too as the orphanage story proceeds in a more, say, traditional way, where there's the build up to, okay, we kind of know there's something going on here. Whereas this is, look, we're in the afterlife, and it's important that we acknowledge that we're in the afterlife. We understand our own condition. Yeah, I thought that I find writing, and this is just, me personally, I find writing short stuff very difficult and very challenging to do well. And I'm always impressed whenever somebody can do it, even just once, but to do it over and over and over again. I really found it just, a really impressive collection.
Thank you.
But I do want to ask though, so, what about, I love the punk story. I love the sort of the litany of punk. And, I kind of wondered, beyond just it's the kind of music you like, and I may be reading too much into it, but it certainly felt as if, that was also a kind of I don't know how to put it, testament of faith on your part, that in some way it was drawing on the importance of those punk figures, in some cases decades, right, after they did their thing. What was that just, am I wrong about that? Was there
No.
What was punk important to you growing up? What is it? What does punk mean to you in particular?
I think you're right. It really does. I wrote that story because you can imagine why. I was furious. I was furious at what was going on, and I think I'm still furious, obviously. And I think it was Henry Rollins said something like, it was probably on Twitter or Facebook, and he said something like, "This is what Joe Strummer trained you for," and it was
yeah.
And we have this ongoing thing about the theme of every being in my house, my husband's, my pets. There's no one who lives here who likes being told what to do. It's like our thing. It's one of our things that we live by, that we won't be told what to do. And it's punk as being loud, as being yourself, as being unapologetic about who you are, and you know, as you can probably tell, like from my stories, I'm from a very working class background, you know. And
yeah, that was actually going to be my sort of follow-up question was how does it relate to coming from, is it Yorkshire or York or
it's
so,
Yorkshire.
okay.
And York is in it, but it's very different. I mean, I'm from a ex-mining town. I'm from where all the miners' strike happened. So when I was a kid, at the time my dad wasn't a miner, but everybody else I knew, their dads were striking, and there was soup kitchens and things like that, and everybody had to help each other out because it was a really dark time. And I've, as someone who was, I mean, I got to go to university through like social democracy basically, and so I got some opportunities, but there was always a sense that I shouldn't have been there and I shouldn't be here. Like I had to really, like, there's not many people who come from my kind of background who end up being here.
Right.
And by here I mean like education wise and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've got a huge chip on my shoulder about it, you know, like I really have. So I wanted to bring those kind of people to the front, you know, they get to have their stories now.
Right. If I can jump in, Emma, it seemed to me also, I highlighted this, that in Black Shuck Tavern, the protagonist gives a tiny bit of background about herself and that she tried going to college. And she wrote things like, she writes, people from my background don't go to college, skipping ahead. The Shuck made me feel like I belonged somewhere. And previous to that, this is the sentence I was going for. I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't belong. And it seems to me, feel free to jump back in, John and Emma, please. But it just seems like to me the other thing I thought about this book as I was reading is that there's the protagonists are always seem to be outsiders of a sort. You know, the lady in porch, the woman in the Black Shuck Tavern, and so on. I mean, is that deliberate? Did you do that on purpose? Because
the kind of people, I mean, I think that's going back to the punk thing. That's why I'm so attracted to that, and because it's about carving your own space and having hope.
Yeah.
People think of punk as being harsh, but it's also about hope, which is very important to me. It's kind of both. So on the one hand, I grew up feeling like I didn't fit in anywhere because, like I said, I grew up in a working class background in a place that highly valued conformity, and I'm a bit weird, you know. I always have been, and so that was difficult to grow up in such an atmosphere, and not fit in. But at the same time, it's very deliberate. The kind of people I put in the center of my stories, people who are working class or people who don't work or women or people who are not straight, it's very, very purposeful. Because I feel really weird saying it on this podcast, right? But nothing against white men, dudes.
No, but we need that, you know. We really do. We need that diversity.
You know, they've got to be the center of stories for how many centuries? You know, so I just felt like, you know, the people who feel like they're outcast, the people who are not like the usual people, I do want to tell stories about them, because I mean the other thing that we were talking before before we came on here is having children. So I'm a woman who's people expect to have. I never had kids, and that does make you an outsider as well. It puts you outside of the usual thing. And so yeah, I do want to talk about people who are not who are outsiders, because I have kind of always been one, and I just feel like it's about time.
You know, there's the Ghost Maker, the protagonist. He's a man, maybe I'm guessing like in his 40s or something. That's the feeling I got, something like that. But he's not very sympathetic, you know, the way that he treats his wife, the way that he acts. So yeah, we need that. We need to, you know, the manager of the Black Shuck Tavern is a trans woman, right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
And you know, I thought this is great that it's in the story. Just as an aside, hey, this is norm. You know, this is norm. That should be normal for her. You know. So it wasn't about her, but she wasn't normal either, as most people would see it.
Yeah.
So I love that.
And that again, I mean, statistically, there's going to be a trans person in these stories, you know, like as far as, and also I really wanted to put that character in particular, Felicity. She's just there doing a job. She's really good at a job. She gets a happy-ish ending.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. I didn't want to put someone in so you can put them, you know, put a trans character in so I can put them through the ringer and, you know, we can see their pain. No, she's just the person who's in the story and actually gets a pretty nice ending. And I really wanted to do that for people. Not because I don't think everything needs to make it into like an issue story. It was just, she's just a character.
Well, it reminds me of, I think it's the first season of Flash, because in my opinion, it's the only good season. But the police chief is gay, and I can't remember. No, he's engaged, not married yet, if I remember correctly. And the doctors won't let the police chief in because he can only see the police chief's fiance was injured in some way, which I don't remember. It doesn't matter. But they wouldn't let him in because they said we can only allow family in. And the Barry's surrogate father says to them, he's engaged to him. I think that makes him family. And that was it. It wasn't a big deal. And I can only imagine, and maybe I'm wrong, but you know, it may be some small comfort to find more and more, if you're a trans person, more and more characters and more stories that you read, you know, even if it is not the central point.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's my intention. And also I feel like stories should, if you're going to, I mean, I know my stories are not realistic in the sense that obviously they go on some pretty wild turns, but I do want to reflect the world that exists rather than a world that is not got any diversity in whatsoever.
When you said on the show a couple minutes ago, that, you know, I'm weird, guys, I immediately thought of The Fog. What was the main character's name? Not Jamie Lee Curtis, the guy.
Jamie Lee Curtis isn't in The Fog.
Yes, she is.
I'm pretty sure she's not. It's Adrienne Barbeau.
Adrienne Barbeau is the radio announcer, but Jamie Lee Curtis,
thank you, Pete,
is the girl running around the streets in the truck.
So this scene is so well done because, you know.
So we were both wrong.
Well, you know what? Those are two of my favorite people
it.
in the whole world in John Carpenter's movie. So
anyway,
it's a win-win.
And if I remember, her name is Hitch.
And what was his name? Come on, you're on a roll.
I can't remember.
All right, never mind.
Because he's really not important. He does nothing.
Age it's a terrible thing. Age, it really is. Yeah.
No, he's not very important, but plus the scene's so well done. You know, many times in movies it's absolute dark at night, only it's not absolutely dark. You know, I keep thinking when you're in the woods and there's a light coming from somewhere, how unrealistic it is. But you can see through his windshield, and it's just so absolutely dark until he comes up. You know, this is like close to midnight, if I remember right. And he comes up on Jamie Lee Curtis. She's hitchhiking. He picks her up, and so they're in the truck for like 1 minute, and she goes, "This is my point." She goes, I really have to ask this before we really get started. Are you weird?" And he goes, Yes, I am weird. And she said, "Oh, thank God, everybody else that I've hitched with wasn't weird at all." So anyway, that's what I immediately thought of when you said that.
I'm going to mangle it now because I can't remember, but it's that bit in The Craft where the bus driver says to the girls, be careful, something like, be careful, there's a lot of weirdos out here. And
weirdos.
yeah, and so, Mister, we are the weirdos.
You know, because weirdos is anybody who's not like me, because they're, you know, right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I have to say, one of the first reviews of my book that I got back was from my brother, my youngest brother, and it just said, "You're a weirdo." But he gets away with that because he's my brother and he knows me very well.
And on
that's a compliment, though, right?
And on the strength of that review, you sold a lot of books already.
Yeah.
You're a weirdo.
So Emma, what about like when you were? Maybe you may have covered this before I showed up, and if so, I
covered a lot of ground. Let me tell you.
I know.
In that 7 minutes.
Right, that 7 minutes. You were like, and this is how I came to Maine. But
actually, she did.
I did, but I can say it again.
No, that's okay. Actually, we'll come back to that. And I also want to know your top 5 punk albums. But before we get to that, when you were growing up and you were realizing, wow, I love to write, were there particular writers you drew inspiration from? Were there specifically, I guess, obviously I'm thinking darker end of the spectrum, but maybe not. Who were the inspirations for you?
I don't think she's the proper age for you to have been one of her influences.
If that's what you were going for.
Damn you, Matt Carpenter! Okay? You see through me at every opportunity.
Well, Langan, first of all, what were the other 4?
It's funny because do you remember? I don't know if you remember this, John, but you read some of the story.
Yes, for the Echoes. The Echoes.
I was like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe he's left us on this cliffhanger, and I was so stressed about it. I was so stressed, and then so I ended up buying Echoes really quick. I think I ended up mistakenly buying 2 copies because I'm like, I've got to read the end of that story, and it was what I was projecting, what was going to happen was way darker than what you did, so it was such a relief and such a better ending.
I know you were like, oh my god, how disappointing this is. You were like, I can't believe I bought 2 copies of this.
I love a story when I genuinely I'm wrong about the ending, and I was so wrong about that.
Langan's like, and this is how you sell books.
No, I'm actually kind of all right. We'll talk about that later or something like that, because I'm like, well, what did you think happened? How dark.
Yeah.
But enough about me. What do you think of my writing?
But no, seriously, who were the writers that
I was a massive reader from being really young, and my poor parents we didn't go to the library much, and it was a small town and there wasn't much choice anyway. So I used to go to, and they couldn't keep up. So I used to go to yards. They call them car boot sales in Britain, but they're basically yard sales,
like flea markets, that sort of
thing. And so
yeah.
I'd pick all the little. Do you remember the little paperbacks, and they've got the coloured edges, the old ones? I'd pick loads of them up. So I was reading stuff, and it was totally random. It was anything. I think I picked my first Stephen King one up that way. But it was stuff like, and bear in mind, I'm like a little 12-year-old with big glasses. And it was stuff, I was picking up stuff like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Alfred Hitchcock's short stories, and who else was there? Like anthologies and things like that, probably Daphne du Maurier. So I was reading all of this stuff because I was attracted to like dark themes anyway. And I was also really, one of my earliest memories is trying to convince my mother to let me stay up late so I could watch Tales of the Unexpected.
Okay.
That was a TV show that was based on like Roald Dahl's stories for kids, not for kids at all.
Right.
The beginning is just fantastic.
And did she go along with that?
She did sometimes, but I mean they were really good. They let me. They would, but she's like a morning person. So the only issue she had is that it was on too late and she wanted to go to bed. So occasionally she'd let me stay up. So I'd watch that, and I'd watch like the not Bram Stoker, Hammer horror stuff. I'd always ask to watch those.
Oh yeah.
So the writers that I really liked were stuff like Alfred Hitchcock. I had this anthology of ghost stories. It was the first book that I ever bought at a Scholastic book fair, and it was called something like Ghosts and Spectres or something. It was an anthology, and it got like classic ones like Dickens, Signal Man, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I read that till it, and I remember my favorite one in that was Laura by Saki. You know, where she
Uh-huh.
yeah, and I read that over and over. So that I read that book till it fell to pieces. So yeah, it was really obvious really early. Like I've been myself for a long time, you know.
Right. Right.
And but then some, like I didn't read Shirley Jackson till I was really quite old. Like I think I was actually like 40 before I read we have always lived in the castle, and it's like my favorite book. And I wish I'd read it earlier because I feel like it would have been made me more myself earlier. But because I grew up in Britain, it's not on, like the lottery is not on the syllabus like it is here. So it was only until I got, I married my husband and moved here that he was like, "You've not read Shirley Jackson?" So it's actually quite late to Shirley Jackson. But Daphne du Maurier, Angela Carter. I always used to seek out when I was a teenager. I was really anything that was either dystopian or if it was called a cult classic, I've probably read it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So,
are there things that are particular? I mean, just for my own curiosity, are there things like you were saying that the lottery is this very American classic, and it is true, right? You run into it in high school. It's like Young Goodman Brown or something like that.
Yeah.
But what are there one or two stories that you think you're sort of surprised? You think, oh, I ran into that when I was in school in the UK, but kids over here don't, or people over here are like, what? I've never heard of that story, or.
I mean, the Roald Dahl one, yeah. The one with, I don't want to give it away unless anybody's not read it. The one with the lamb chop.
Lamb to the slaughter, yeah.
That one, because I used to, as you know, I used to teach English, high school, and that was one that always came up a lot. But the weird thing is that I was the stuff that I read at school, I can't remember much about it until I got to be about 16 and I specialised in English because you specialise when you're 16 in Britain.
Uh-huh.
And then it was like, Shakespeare and Blake and Austen. The only thing I remember about school, weirdly, was that every book seemed to be about the Irish potato blight. And that's all I remember. And that can't be true. It can't be true. And then the only other one I can think of, because I'm looking at it, is in middle school we read Rebecca's World, which was written by Terry Nation, who wrote a lot of Doctor Who, and that's like a fantasy book, and Americans don't seem to have heard of that, whereas it went out of print, and you can see loads of British people trying to buy it because they remember it from when they were a kid.
Okay.
So that was one, Rebecca's World, and that's like she goes off. It's really funny. I read it recently, and I was one of the ones who bought it.
Did you say that you were you read a lot of dystopian fiction as a teen?
Yeah.
It seems like to me that a lot of teenagers are attracted, even today, to dystopian fiction, and I wonder what it is about that and being a teenager. It's because it's been so long. I don't remember. You don't have to agree with me, Pete.
Yes, it has. It absolutely has.
It's been a while for me. I can't remember anything about school apart from the potato blight, apparently. I read them all, and so it makes it nice when you're older. Like as part of my job, I read like the Hunger Games, and it was like, oh, I remember all the bits she was drawing from. My favorite will always be Brave New World, but I don't know if you feel particularly nihilistic when you're a teenager, and so you think about the world ending. I don't know, maybe that was me. But yeah, I do not. Yeah, teenagers. Yeah. I mean, now I think it's good because we're basically training them. We need to train them to survive.
Training them,
right? Because we're in a dystopia. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just funny because despite everything that's going on, I don't see anybody recommending Sinclair Lewis. It Can't Happen Here, or Upton Sinclair. Sorry.
Yeah.
The guy who wrote The Jungle.
Yeah.
I thought, in all seriousness, I thought it was Sinclair Lewis who did.
I'm probably right. Yes,
It can't
Sinclair
happen.
Lewis.
You
Yeah.
did.
I said Sinclair was a
Statistically, yes, you
muckraker,
probably
not
are
an
right.
author.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. Yeah.
Who's the guy who wrote?
Sinclair Lewis.
Who's the guy who wrote the Triffids? I think it was a trilogy.
John Wyndham.
John Wyndham. Yeah. I was just going to ask, did you read him too?
Yeah, I only remember John Wyndham I remember him from the TV shows, and I remember being genuinely terrified by the Triffids. Like, genuinely.
I just rewatched that this week.
Yeah. Does it hold up at all, or is it just big rubber plants?
So, no, yeah, it's so, yeah, the plants are kind of ridiculous up close, but there's a lot of mass shots that are really, really effective. And I watched.
You mean the 50s movie or the remake?
Well, I think there's 3 versions, but the 1958 version, yeah. And I was really surprised, and I mentioned this on my Facebook page, and a lot of people agreed with me. The structure and the characters look like it's reused in 28 Days Later.
Very possible.
That's interesting.
And Bill Michael and Glenn Owen Barras both suggested that 28 Days Later was an homage to Day of the Triffids.
I've never thought of that before, and now I'm suddenly like, oh my god!
I mean, both main characters wake up in the hospital. A disaster has occurred in London. Little girl.
You are right now.
There's a little girl that's key to the whole storyline.
Right, there's the soldiers who've holed up in the place and are tyrann. Wow.
Yeah, and almost raped the little girl.
Jesus. In a 58. Wow.
And they have to leave London by car, and they get stuck in essentially empty traffic. There's a lot of key scenes that are very similar.
Oh wow.
I'm going to have to rewatch that now. So that terrified you, the 58
Oh,
version.
yeah, there was a few things. But the thing about growing up in Britain when I did is that they used to do these... it's very... I need to write about this, like a non-fiction, about how gothic it is, going up in the 70s and 80s in a place like that, because even they used to have these short films that were made by the government to scare you about stuff, to stop you doing stuff. So fireworks, stuff like that. And there's generations of us that are traumatized. We're traumatized by these films. So one of them was, and everybody who's British knows this. Is it called Robbie? It's basically don't go on railway lines.
Don't go what?
On rail, on.
On railway lines. Okay, yeah.
Because in Britain they're electrified, the central rails, so it'll kill you.
Yeah.
And so Robbie, who's a soccer player, he goes and he's got some new soccer boots, and he gets them caught in the lines when they're going over the railway tracks, and he's pulling his boots, and you can guess what happens. He doesn't need his soccer boots after that. Let's just say.
It's like art.
By this, there's these shoes hanging on the door at the end, Or there was one about don't swim in ponds, and there was literally death coming towards, floating on top of it. So these are the public information film. So there's no wonder we turned out like we did. I mean, this is the government telling us to behave by bringing death over.
We may have you beat with the hide under your desk if a atom bomb explodes when.
Yeah.
But Mike, what I was really thinking of in comparison was the after-school specials.
I missed those.
When I was a kid, we actually practiced duck and cover when I lived in California.
Yeah,
because that will save you from an atomic blast. Yeah,
yeah.
I hate to suggest I'm as old as Matt is, but yeah, we used to get notes home from the from the principal, and it would say, in the event of a war, blah blah blah, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. My parents were from Scotland, from west of Glasgow, and so they had lived as very young children. They'd lived through the Blitz. And that was our point of reference in our household for war, was the Second World War. And I just could not understand how that was going to happen here. But I was young enough to have escaped our version of those films you're talking about. But some of my friends' older siblings had seen them, and they were just horrifying. Apparently, there was one that was about leaving. I guess people put pennies on rail tracks to flatten them. So don't do that, because if you do that and the train hits it at the wrong angle, it turns it into a deadly projectile that can go right through your brain. And I always imagined, I mean, maybe this is a story, right? But, imagine the aspiring filmmaker, the young Scorsese or Coppola, and they're like, look, that guy's got a penny in his head. You need to go down and film this. And he's like, well, here I go.
It can happen, but it's not
right. It can happen to you. It's going to happen to you.
And
I do remember I lived in England for 3 years in the Midlands, and I do remember watching a video or a commercial, a British commercial of, don't drink and drive, and it shows this car flip over, and it goes into the backyard as this little boy's playing, football in the backyard,
collateral
and it
damage.
lands right on him, smack, and it's just like, wow, whoa, got it, I got it.
I had some trauma as a child, but I'm glad I didn't have that trauma.
Soccer playing kid is like if something happens to the soccer playing kid in Britain, that's the worst. So you've got to avoid harming soccer playing kids. That's like the thing.
Guys, what's the one about marijuana?
I learned it from watching you, Dad. I learned it from watching you.
No.
Right, a kid who finds a father who finds his son's stash, and he's like, "What is this?" And then the kid, angrily, and it was
something really succinct though, with weed in the title. Something how it turns you into a maniac and.
Oh, Reefer Madness?
Reefer Madness, yes.
That
was from the
older.
30s, though, wasn't it?
That was when Mike was a child,
Yeah.
No, I think the movie was Needle Park, right?
Huh?
Panic at Needle Park.
Yeah.
From the
60s.
60s, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah.
Early 60s, late 50s, I don't know.
I don't know about you guys, but I would rather be confronted by a guy high on pot than someone who's been drinking whiskey all night. So
there's a very famous case study where they sat two groups of people down, and they gave one group alcohol and they gave other guys pot, and then they had them drive cars.
Oh my God!
And then they gave them another dose.
This is a hell of a test.
And then they gave him another dose and had him drive cars. And after 10 drinks and 10 joints, the guys on alcohol, they get in the car and they just drive all over the lanes. They smash through cones. They hit the wall. They trash the car. And the guys on pot, they're like, okay, here's the keys, get in the car. And they're like, nah, man, we're good. We don't need to go anywhere.
we don't do that.
And the official report is that smoking pot saps your will to do anything. It's worse than alcohol,
including murder yourself or kill yourself.
It saps your ability to go out and kill 3-year-olds playing in their backyards.
Yes.
I don't know how we got on that, but it's funny.
Yeah.
This is what fans love about the show. We just go where it takes us.
That's right. Well, here's what I'm going to take it now. This is one, I keep saying I love the title, but the first sentence in Black Shuck Tavern is, I'm being followed by a huge fucking dog of potentially supernatural origin. And, I was like, oh man, this is going to be good. And it was. But what a great concept, though. And I don't want to give away the ending at all, but I like the ending a lot. And I thought maybe it was going that way. I hoped it was going that way, and it was really great. It was still very satisfying when I got there. And Josh took me by surprise. That's all I'll say. I didn't see that coming at all.
Yeah.
We talked about
stylistically. It's so elegantly written. It really. There's a lot of you can get used to digging for treasure, I guess. When you're reading, you're like, oh, this isn't the greatest. Okay, but look, that's a cool image, or there's a cool idea, or something like that. But but it was you're like, well, I guess I got to get through the next story because the eZine is in a couple of hours and I got to get this thing done, but this was this was just a pleasure to read from start to finish, which really, I don't know, that has come to mean a lot more to me, I guess, things that where the writer actually cares about the prose,
Unlike stuff I write.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, Pete,
okay.
but I mean, since it's come up,
my mind went there right away. Yeah,
I saw it was like a little thought bubble over Mike's head.
I just vocalized it. That's my job.
Yeah, exactly. To read my mind.
Ventriloquy. Okay. Yes.
So
Emma, we'll say both of those stories, though. Like, well, that story, the Black Chuck, plus the sermon, like with the sister.
Oh yeah, the sermon's great.
Right.
Oh,
so there's this. Josh, is like kind of preppy, right? And and then when you see what happens in the hallway in the sermon afterward, what it made me think was Pretty in Pink in a horror movie. If Ducky and Molly Ringwald attacked James Spader, it's like,
it would have been a much better
movie. This is what I'm
movie.
reading.
I confess that I did. So I could probably do, like, if they did like a specialist subject thing, I could probably do that on like 80s teen movies because I used to watch them a lot. I can't begin to tell you how glamorous they were to someone who's growing up in a pit village in Yorkshire. Like there was no prom back then for me, and so yes, I do know it's got to come through. I watch them so much; it's got to come through sometimes.
But you had the Smiths in New Order. We had to import that.
I did. Yeah.
I have a lot of loyal viewers, but I have someone who I think maybe has been watching me the longest. It's hard to say. I know people watch that never comment and they enjoy the show and so forth. But I want to pass this on because she just wrote in the show notes, if Emma gets these comments, I'd like to thank her for the trans character and her attitude towards diversity. So I wanted to pass that on.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for saying that. That really means a lot. Yeah.
So there was
go ahead, Pete.
We talked about the porch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, there's another story, and someone's like, "Did you have a cat?" Yeah, my mom had a cat. She used to bring. Is that supposed? Are they supposed to tie together? Or
not necessarily, but I guess they could. But that's just, it's like a coincidence. It's one of those things that, like, I can literally hear my cat now, and it, like I said earlier, he's like 19 pounds, and I can hear him throwing himself against the bedroom door because we shut it. So there'll always be like mentions of stuff like that, but it wasn't purposeful.
I had the same thought, Pete.
Yeah. I'm going to pretend that I did. Yeah, it's totally on purpose.
That cat, he just keeps showing up in different stories.
And Pete is exactly the type of person who picks up on stuff like that too. So.
Well, and then the Not Glutton Club really reminded me of the Monster Club.
The Monster Club, because I'm not sure I'm familiar.
Is that the movie? What?
It's an adaptation of some R. Chetwynd Hayes stories.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. Yeah.
Oh, actually, Hayes hated it. So,
but it's on. I think it's like, isn't it on YouTube? I want to say I went searching for it at some point, and at that point, it wasn't on Netflix, it wasn't on Prime, but I just looked at a YouTube just for kicks, and there it was, in all its glory.
Is this the one with the kids and Dracula and the Wolfman and? Is this called Monster Club? I think.
No, that's another one you're thinking of, but that's the other one. Wolfman's got nards. Yeah, like the Wolfman. Yeah,
that's the Monster Society or something.
Something like that. Yeah,
where the kid has a bow and arrow or something, and he's with the cool kid with the leather. Monster Squad. That's it. Sorry.
Thank you, Kim. And Mike DeBronzo says, Mike, are you saying it's still on Prime, or there it was?
I think I watched it just recently on Prime.
On Amazon.
Yeah, as I said, this was years ago.
But anyway, it's
John was like, "What's YouTube again?" Okay, my first search is this.
It's basically
I'm sorry, John.
A fictionalized R. Chetwynd Hayes meets a vampire in the middle of London and takes him to the Monster Club where all the monsters hang out, and he tells him stories. And
I see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. I mean, there was a couple of things with that I was. There was the actual Glutton Club, which existed, and I think Tolkien was in it, and they searched out unusual things to eat, so that was their club. And there was so one of my favourite anthologies is that I reread all the time. It's a vampire anthology. Is it Stephen Jones? Anyway, it was called something different in Britain, and I think Kim Newman had a story in it, and it was I think he turned it into I Know Dracula, but that short story, they've got a bunch of secret clubs in that as well. And the thing about the not the Glutton Club is, I've said this in some other interviews, but I had a story that was supposed to go into this collection, but because of a series of things that happened, it couldn't go in. So
as it happened,
I needed a new one, and I didn't have anything that really I liked. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna write another one. And then I got pneumonia.
Ooh.
And I was as sick as I've ever been in my life. Like I was bedridden. You know, I'd been to the ER. I was like in Britain, and then I came back, and I was just really, really sick. And I went to the ER, and they said, well, you can take these antibiotics, and then you can go home. Otherwise, you'll have to stay here. But if your ankles start to hurt, let us know. And I said, well, why? And they were like, because these antibiotics, sometimes they make your tendons rupture.
That happened to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds incredibly painful.
Yep.
So I went home, and so I was really, really sick, and I couldn't sit on a computer, but I knew I had a deadline and I needed to write a story. So I ended up like writing that while I was sick in bed with handwriting it with the pneumonia. So it really did feel like a fever dream for me to write it. And I think that kind of, it adds that atmosphere because I was so sick when I wrote it. But I did have the feeling of like, maybe I'm done writing about tuberculosis for a while, you know, after pneumonia, maybe I'm done, but probably not.
Well, I'm sorry, go on.
Nope, that's it.
I'd like to close up by mentioning a couple of more highlights that really got to me. Sermon from New London is a dystopian story. So, it is a sermon to these women, and she's talking about in the days of the last president, it became clear that you had to take sides. And, I really, really strive to avoid politics on the show, but it does seem that way these days, that you either are this way or that way. There's no room for nuance or for logical, calm debate. Now, I'm not talking about things like racism, things like that. There's a right and there's a wrong view on race, and how you treat other people because they're different from you. But it just really struck home with me. And then I mentioned this quote, and you had mentioned earlier in the podcast that you're not a mother, which in another way makes you an outsider to so many people. Wrongly so, but it does. They, oh, you're female, you should have kids, that kind of attitude. And so knowing that you don't have children, I thought how empathic these couple sentences were from the Scholastic Home for Children of the Sea. Here's the quote. What was in my heart was these children. It was as if I had been cracked open at the core, and they were the light that was let in. And I just thought, man, that is exactly how I felt after my son was born. I didn't really know how it was going to be a parent, And then it became real, this little life that depends on you for everything, absolutely everything. And I just thought it just sort of, I almost gained a little bit more faith in the world because I saw this perfect creature, in front of me. So that quote got to me too. And I think what a good writer to be able to write a couple sentences like that. And you mentioned that you've taken care of your sister's kids and everything. But to be able to write a couple sentences like that and imagine yourself in that exact same position. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but it just boils down to that it really moved me, and it's damn good writing. So it's what I'm really trying to say. we want to ask Emma anything else before we stop grilling her mercilessly?
Yeah, I want your top 5 punk albums.
I'm gonna do to you what I do when someone asks me a question at the library. I'm gonna I need to think about that, and I'll get back to you because
Oh my God, that's classic English teacher. That's what do you think? Yeah.
But before I let you go, I was going to ask: were you an English teacher in Yorkshire or in Maine?
In Yorkshire.
In Yorkshire,
yeah.
Okay.
Because I taught English for 10 years in England, and when I moved over here, I went through the process of signing up and all this stuff, and they were like, well, you have to prove that you can do this, and you've got to take an English test, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not.
Yeah.
So I volunteered at the library, and I'd really liked it, so I did a career change.
Yeah, that sounds like a horrific job to be surrounded by those books all day long. So
it's not bad, honestly.
I know. No, I'm being sarcastic. It sounds like a dream job, kind of like my other dream job of manning a lighthouse, which we no longer need people to do.
Mm. I mean, I don't see. John does this, but I don't. When I was teaching, I didn't write all that time, mostly because I just was too tired. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I will say that the last 2 years I've been teaching. I moved to teaching high school from teaching college, and that has made it a lot more difficult to write. You're absolutely right. It is so. I think if you're trying to be a decent high school teacher, it's so imagination intensive that it just and just also you're just exhausted from these subhuman monsters you're dealing with all day.
Well, and it's not just that. My wife is an English teacher, is why I asked. And it's just, even in a good time, a non-pandemic time, if you're a good teacher, it's so I see it as so all-consuming for her because,
it really is.
there's so much work for so little pay, but she does it because she cares about the kids. So, but
I think you're right that the caring aspect of it is when I was an adjunct instructor at New Paltz or Marist or whatever college I was teaching at, you do develop relationships with the kids, but you're an adjunct. You know that the college regards you as just, a migrant worker, basically. You just happen to be here. When you're there and you're the English teacher for the sophomores, the juniors, and the seniors, then you really develop this attachment to these kids. You can't help it, and unless you're like a sociopath. You wind up, there are some nights that you're lying awake and you're like, oh man, what's going to happen to so-and-so? They had to go back home from boarding school this weekend to this disastrous home life. And what's that going to be like, and
yeah, Danielle worries about the small town we live in, semi-small, before all this, when the kids had Christmas break and things like that and summer vacation, a lot of them get their meals from the school. That's it.
Yeah.
She has peanut butter and jelly in her classrooms, used to, before the apocalypse. But anyway, Emma, I really appreciate you being on the show, and I can't really emphasize enough to the audience that this is just a really great collection. And what's so even more impressive is that it's your debut collection, and I can't wait to see what you come up with next. Really, do you have another one in the works, or a novel in the works, or anything like that?
I've got a novel in the works.
Okay.
So I'm doing that right now, and we'll see.
Wait! You can't just say novel. You got to give us some hints.
No,
okay.
She can't.
Now, what's going on with this novel?
So the way I write, I can't. Right now, I might change in the future, but right now I can't plan. So I only see kind of what's in front of me. So I can tell you what I've researched so far. So far my research has included Victorian body snatchers and graveyard etiquette.
Oh yeah, I'm sold.
70s female rock stars and alien abduction. So
all of this is good. This is good.
Yeah, take my money.
Thumbs up,
send you the money now.
Yeah, and so even I don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere, and those things are involved.
So one last question about that, if you want to answer it. Are you writing in first person or second person?
All of them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You know, 'cause
Rich
when
and I were
people say
discussing
you
before.
shouldn't do that, and I'll say, don't tell me what to do, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So far it's all over the place, but I don't know what it will be when the end, but I suspect there'll be different voices, because that's how I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it works.
Well, Rich and I were discussing before the show that I almost think that sometimes, unless it's a very, very good novelist, that the first person, the active tense, seems to, for me as reading it, seems to me to work better in short stories than novels. But I'm sure there's plenty of books out there that prove me wrong.
I don't know if I can sustain it over a novel length, but we'll see. It's looking like there's going to be different voices that, you know.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for coming on the show today. And like I said to the audience, I can't emphasize enough to buy this book. Again, it's Dark Blood Comes from the Feet, and it is available on Amazon print and Kindle. And I believe if you buy it from Journal Stone's website, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Emma, if you buy the print, you get the Kindle version free.
Yeah, they can do a Kindle e-version. Yeah.
So whichever way you want to purchase it, but you should purchase it, folks. And man, if you're more of a Kindle person, which I am these days because my wife is sick of me bringing books home, or the postman bringing me books home, it's only $5.95. Yeah, it just seems like for such a quality collection of stories, it seems like such a steal to me. So anyway, thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you. I will get on my way and have dinner, but thank you for having me on the show, and lovely talking to you all.
You too. Have a good dinner.
Bye.
Robert S. Wilson, how did you get in here?
You're muted.
I'll unmute you.
Mike, you've got to unmute him.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. He's unmuted. Hey, Robert.
Singular commercial. I don't know how I got here. I just kind of popped up.
Yeah, randomly. Yeah. Do you want to talk about anything?
Yeah.
Briefly before we talk about all our nerd stuff.
Actually, Nightscape Press, the company that my wife and I run, we have a Kickstarter going right now for actually a couple of projects that we put together for the Kickstarter. Well, not for the Kickstarter specifically, but put together to run the Kickstarter for both of them.
Yeah, to fund the press, in essence, because it's really hard when you're a small press.
Oh, yeah. And, one thing also is, these were two projects that were really expensive, and we're kind of struggling to sort out the cost, because one of them was probably the most ambitious thing we've ever done. Well, it is definitely the most ambitious thing we've ever done. And that's the Secret Gateways box set with Matthew and Bartlett and John Paget.
Both great writers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Phenomenal writers. There's such phenomenal writers. That's kind of why I dreamed up the project to begin with, because there was a bit of a hint in a Facebook conversation that John was talking about the possibility of him and Matt collaborating on a story sometime. And I was like, what do I have to do to make this reality? Because, I could just imagine both of their voices working together just spectacularly. So, I started thinking about it, and I was talking to them about it here and there. And at first we were talking about maybe doing like one book that was essentially a collection of a mix of their individual stories and some collaboration stories. And then it kind of expanded until it ended up being a hardcover box set that includes both of their debut collections in new form. Secret of Ventriloquism, John Paget's collection is actually going to be, it's actually revised and expanded.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that. I thought I was just reprint.
No, it's he's added to some of the stories and tweaked it a bit here and there. And
that's
then
it sounds like you should wait for this, but that's one of the creepiest books I've ever read. And one of the most unsettling books.
Yeah, and I mean the same thing with the second book in this, which is Bartlett's debut collection, Gateways to Abomination.
Right.
And that one actually it has a new story in it, which if anybody who's read his work, specifically that collection, knows the Sons of Men stories. There's actually he wrote a story. At first, it was going to be Sons of Men 1 because there wasn't actually a Sons of Men 1 in the collection originally. He counted down. I think he started at 3 and he had 2, and then there was no number 1. So that kind of, we had a conversation once, and I said, I always wondered what that first story was supposed to be. And he said, you know what? I actually forgot about that. And it might have been a mix-up. But we talked about it, and
now he's got to tuckerize you in that story, Robert, as a thank you.
But yeah, he one day he was just like, all right, well, I've written a new Sons of Ben story. And at first he said it was going to be 1, but he decided it was going to be 5 because apparently he has more in store for the whole Sons of Men lineage, I guess.
Yeah, Bartlett's a great writer. He really is.
Oh yeah.
See, this is important. I said this to you privately, one-on-one, when we did the video test, but you're a small press. I'm small press. I'm only doing 3 books this year, but
yeah,
it's a rough gig.
Yeah.
And any support you can get is welcomed. So you're running a Kickstarter right now. It's doing well. You got some great rewards on there. If you're watching on the YouTube, I've got the link in the show notes to the Nightscape Kickstarter, and if you're listening on audio later, it's going to be there too. So as well as the link to Emma's book, of course.
Didn't Matt Henshaw, was it last Thursday? He sent the link of a commercial
Matt Henshaw
he
made
for
a
that.
little video about it. Yeah,
I think he made a video about that. Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, I watched that. That was neat. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's not a competition. We all do different things, and hopefully this will help even more. How many days is left on the Kickstarter?
28, I think. Yep, 28.
Yeah. Well, Kickstarters, you're in that kind of middle phase where the attention goes away, and then closer to the beginning and the end is where you get a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
tumbleweeds for about 20 days or so, probably.
Yeah.
Not 27.
Well,
that last day, everything goes crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So, anything else you want to say about it before we move on?
Just real quick, was going to mention there is a 3rd volume in that set, which is collaboration stories between both Matt and John. It's got 4 stories, and then this is also to cover the color paperback edition of my anthology from last year, Nox Pareidolia, which is a Bram Stoker Award nominated anthology. This is Horror Award nominated as well, and a new award I hadn't heard of, the Indie Horror Book Award, I think is what it's called. It was nominated for that as well, and
that's cool.
I don't think the last 2 awards that they've picked their winners yet, so I don't know what's going on with those. Of course, everything's crazy with COVID, of course. So.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, thanks for dropping by. And again, I've got the Kickstarter link in the show notes. Yeah. If you just feel like Googling it or something. Nightscape Press Kickstarter worked for me. Just Nightscape and Kickstarter didn't. There were too many other things that came up. But like I said, I've linked it in the show notes. So,
Robert, I'm sorry. Did you say how close you were to your goal? I may have missed that.
We're actually 77% of the way there. We're trying to raise $15,000 total, and we're at 11,613 currently.
Wow!
Excellent.
Yeah, and we have some pretty big stretch goals with it. We want to do some extra things with the box set that, some extra bells and whistles and things that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So, hoping to hit those with the extra time after we hopefully hit our goal. So,
well, I think you will, but for the audience, it pays to remember that no matter how close you get in Kickstarter, if you don't get all the way there, for the main version of Kickstarter anyway, you don't get anything. So, to support small press, this is something that you really should do, and you get cool stuff too when you do it. So, and I mean, revised and edited Secret of Ventriloquism, John Paget. That sells me right there. So, along with all the other stuff. So yeah, thanks, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. You feel free to stick around. We're going to talk about horror movies, or you can go if you want to. Either way. So,
okay. I'll probably stick around for a few and see how it goes.
Yeah, sure.
got a little one in the other room who might get antsy.
Okay, guys. So I mentioned Beach House, this supposedly Lovecraftian movie that I think it was Bleeding Cool said was like phenomenal or something. And I said I was going to watch it after the show last Sunday. Oh man, it sucked. I mean, it sucked on Rollick level of I want to watch a bad movie. It was worse than that. So don't watch it.
I watched.
I started watching like the first half hour of it, and then I was like, "Oh, the show's on. I better go." So, and I'm going to watch the rest of it because I'm in for half an hour. I'm like, "All right, I got to, I mean, come on, it's only
really,
an hour.
I wasted what was, I guess, 90 minutes of my life that I will never get back.
Dude, I'm on the eZine like 2 hours a week. I mean, come on, I'm not getting those hours back. I might as well just in for a penny, in for a pound.
Wow.
Yeah, I might as well just go the whole hog.
All right. Anyway, moving on. Now, Matt, you want to talk about Dark Skies briefly? I've got a little list here.
Okay, we watched this on movie night last night.
I've never watched it, actually. Yeah.
It's 6 or 7 years old. It was a really good cast. It was a really good script. It wasn't special effects heavy. It was more subtle than that. And it just is a very normal suburban couple having money troubles, have kids, and then strange things start happening in their house, like all the photographs disappearing from their picture frames, or all the lights in the kitchen being arranged into a geometric pattern. And they begin to realize that they may be the subjects of an alien visitation. And it is both tense, it's creepy. There's a few little scares. It's not basically a jump scare movie, and there's no body horror. But the ending was, for me, unexpected. Okay. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I think I saw a trailer of it once, and I considered it. But, yeah, I'll have to watch it now. The photographs disappearing or changing on the wall that you mentioned, that's pretty fascinating. I mean, that's like weird fiction type. This happened, and I have no explanation for why it would even happen. That kind of thing. So,
is this one, Matt, where it was, I may have seen it, where it looked almost like a poltergeist movie for part of the film until you realize it's an alien movie, right? But a lot of the stuff happening almost seems like a poltergeist movie, right?
Maybe.
I think I remember watching the trailer and I got that vibe too.
I was just thinking that at the beginning they've got money problems and they have kids, and I was thinking cause and effect. Yeah.
Do you have kids, John, by the way? I think you do.
2, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Okay, we'll watch that. Pete, you said
I'm looking for more movies to add to my list for movie night titles to consider. Not Alligator People.
Thank you.
What happened to you, Matt Carpenter? You used to be cool.
Alligator People is something I reserve for myself.
Okay, I respect that. I respect that.
There's experiences you don't share with other people. It's a very personal movie.
I bet. Pete, you said I'd like Cosmos. I started to watch it the other day. Got about 20 minutes in. It seemed okay so far, but a little slow in the beginning.
It's a very slow moving movie.
Slow burn type thing.
Yeah, it's really about people dealing with their personal shit until they don't have the opportunity to deal with their shit anymore. They have to deal with something much bigger.
That sounds good. Okay.
Yeah, and it reminds me a lot of the Europa Report.
Oh yeah.
Not in the subject matter, but in the idea that science is 99% waiting for shit to happen, and it's 1% fury that after that.
Rewatched Interstellar. Speaking of waiting for things to happen, rewatched Interstellar the other day.
Yeah, sorry,
You don't like that movie?
I don't like Interstellar. I don't.
I didn't care for it either. Frankly, I thought
You're all
the
wrong.
script was poor. You know,
I hate to. You're just wrong. Wrong. But how is the science in that, Pete? I mean, it's a little bit of a hobby with mine, but you're the guy to ask.
Well, what I don't like about it is this idea that there's some terrible thing that is wiping out the ability to sustain life on the planet.
Yeah, that was a bit of a hand wave.
It's a lot of hand waving. It's like we can't live here anymore. Like,
not to mention the black hole that's it's not that far.
Yeah,
we can just we can get to the black hole and then we can sort of lens around the black. Like, no. I mean, it's I kind of felt the same way about Ad Astra. Like, it was a film that had some beautiful, beautiful imagery, and I really wanted to like it. But
okay, here's my problem. Okay,
if
you're going to talk real space travel, and the distances are so difficult, and the environment is so hostile, it's like unrealistic because you cannot shield these iron atoms that are charged particles that are floating through space, or they're actually going along at the speed of light. And when you're out there, there's nothing that shields you, and they're like actually all penetrating your brain, penetrating your body. And if you were the person who said, I'm going to run the mission to Mars, stay 6 months and come back. So now you're talking about you're out there exposed to this kind of environment for, like, let's just say 9 months, realistically. And you're going to end up either with Alzheimer's at a young age, or you're going to end up with a lethal form of cancer or multiple lethal forms of cancer.
Is this a real thing?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like you can't shield this. It's like,
not to mention the nearest star is hundreds of years away.
Well, I'm just talking about, suppose you want to send someone to Mars, which you could hypothetically do. It's the realistic outcome is that person is, if they don't get killed in an accident on the way, which is how well we've been doing with landers. It's like,
what about the moon thing?
The moon, it was a shorter trip. It was like 2 weeks to the moon, right?
I think so.
Like, so they got exposed, but the exposure rate was low. And even then, the people who are out in the space station, they're not in high Earth orbit like the moon landing was. They're in low Earth orbit. There's still a bit of an atmosphere to absorb some of these particles. But still, if you go out on the International Space Station for 6 or 9 months, you're going to have real issues with osteoporosis.
Yeah.
So realistically, it's like, okay, not to mention, like, where are we going to store all this shit that we're producing?
I love
we'll recycle it and put it in our food processor. Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love Star Trek, but the gravity is the same on every planet they visit. I guess that's because they're all Type M planets. I don't know.
Well, that's why all the people look like people.
Don't start.
None of them look like a toaster.
You already mentioned this on the show. Orphan. I haven't seen it, and somebody I follow on Twitter said it was great. Anyone seen it?
Hadn't even heard of it.
Just Orphan.
Is this an old movie about the girl who's adopted?
It's about
like, is that the one from Eastern Europe where she's like really old but looks young? Or
oh god, there's a real case of that.
Yeah, there is actually.
2009 movie.
Yeah, it's that exact story.
I don't know if that qualifies as really old. Yeah. Maybe to young people like Pete, but we talked about Relic last time, didn't we?
Yeah,
we did. I watched it a few days ago.
Did you like it?
Really? Wow. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Very, very creepy.
All right.
I thought it was very well done.
It's in theaters, but it's also
I love
on
the
Prime.
building up. It is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can rent it on Prime, on Amazon.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I love the build up.
Yeah.
I haven't Relic yet.
You have nothing? Okay. All right. Well, on the strength of that, I'll watch Relic. The Orphan just looks just because the concept is just like, I don't know if I watch that. Pete. Oh no, it wasn't Pete. I can't remember who it was. Vivarium.
I started it. I got 2 minutes in, and I said, no, I can't invest in this right now.
Right.
So
it's on my list for movie night.
You know.
So it's fair to say it didn't grab you in the first 2 minutes.
Well, no, I really saw nothing in the first 2 minutes. I was just
those credits just weren't working for you, man.
It was something that I was obviously going to have to really, really invest in, and I was not looking for that. So I watched Day of the Triffids instead.
Good thing, because we talked about it today.
I know. In all seriousness, that whole Day of the Triffids, 28 days later, that I'm like, holy cow, that is absolutely
right.
That's sort of mind-boggling.
Yeah, Pete's mind-boggling. All right.
Yeah.
But you're right. You're right.
I did watch the film. I really enjoyed. It's from 2019. It's called Only.
Only.
Okay. And it is essentially a reworking of James Tiptree's The Screw Fly Solution.
Okay.
And Earth passes through the tail of a comet, and all the women either die or go sterile.
Did you ever read the book The White Plague by James Herbert?
By Frank Herbert, yes.
Frank Herbert, the guy who did Dune.
Yeah.
This sounds like The White Plague.
I was actually going to go with the only similar thing is now is Something Passed By. McCammon's Blue World story in McCammon's Blue World collection.
Well, MP Shields the Purple Cloud, right? Isn't that the comet drapes us in its atmosphere and I don't know, bad things happen?
Did one, the Death Cloud.
The what cloud? What are you talking about?
The Death Barrier, something like that. Arthur Conan Doyle.
Okay.
Oh.
It's a Challenger story.
Okay.
But the Screwfly Solution by James Tiptree, Alice B. Sheldon. Essentially, aliens invade Earth, and they want to take the population out first. So they turn the male sex drive into violence.
Oh, that'll.
So instead of making love to a woman, you beat her to death.
Oh my God! Talk about horror.
Yeah, Tiptree's dark. She goes pretty dark.
Yeah, but the Only is essentially about a guy who tries to keep his girlfriend alive and does a damn good job of it by keeping her in quarantine for 360 more than a year. While the government is rounding up women to try and harvest their eggs, see if they can get a viable embryo going. But there are some nice points because they eventually, they break quarantine. They go to a diner and they get the menus, and the waiter says, "Yeah, we don't got no eggs."
Nice.
There are no eggs anymore.
Here's another movie I haven't seen yet, but I've got it on my watch list to see. Paper House. Which is, let me read the synopsis. Anna is becoming lost in the loneliness of her own world. I think she's a kid. When she discovers she can visit another, a house she has drawn herself and occupied by a young disabled boy. But as she discovers more of the links between her fantasy world and the mundane present, she is drawn only deeper into a dream turning into a nightmare. Now that's a nice, succinct synopsis without really giving too much of the plot away. It looks interesting.
Has it come out yet?
It's on Amazon, I think. I read the book. I don't know if any of you had Daniel Isn't Real, which was another title before it got turned into a movie. I really like the book. I haven't watched the movie yet, but it's playing with the concept of an imaginary friend. And the book, this isn't a spoiler, you figured out on the first page basically. The book is written in the first person by the imaginary friend. in the book. So I don't know how they do it in the movie, but I've heard it's a good movie. And then I put on my watch list, just because I'm interested in that concept, a movie called Imaginary Friend. It's got 4 stars for whatever that's worth. But it is, if you've got Prime, you can watch it for free.
I watched a very similar film on Shudder called Z. About a kid who has a
not that political movie.
No. Who has a horrific imaginary friend. And I found it really good.
Yeah, I like that kind of theme. You know, I do recommend the book. I haven't seen the movie yet. But the guys who made... Shit, I can't even remember that Lovecraftian movie made by the 2 brothers where they grew up in a cult.
Oh, the Endless.
The Endless.
Yeah, the Endless. Yeah.
The guys who made the Endless, I saw somewhere that they really liked the movie Daniel Isn't Real. So I'll have to watch it at some point. So there's one for you, Matt. Maybe a couple for you. What, Pete?
Yeah.
I watched something that I didn't expect to enjoy, but was pleasantly surprised. Dave Made a Maze.
What's the title again?
Dave Made a Maze.
Dave Made a Maze. Okay.
It's about this couple. She goes away for the weekend. He's a struggling artist. She comes back, and there's a cardboard construct in the middle of her living room, a small one. And her boyfriend's voice emanates it from it, and he says, "I made a maze.
Okay.
I can't get out."
What?
I made a maze and I can't get out.
Man.
She walks around the maze and she's like, just lift it up. And he says, no, you can't. I'm heavily invested in this. So she just touches it and shakes it, and the whole thing just starts shaking. He starts screaming, and he finally says, "Look, call my friends." So they call her, and they go in, and this thing is huge.
Right, bigger on the inside than the outside.
Bigger on the inside.
I've heard of that.
And he's
sounds like House of Leaves.
Well, and the thing is like, oh yeah, just be careful. There's booby traps.
Nice.
And the girlfriend's like, why would you build booby traps? And the friend is like, oh no, it's a labyrinth. It makes perfect sense.
Did he? Well, don't tell me anymore, because this sounds really fascinating. I'm gonna watch it. Dave Made a Maze.
Really, really good. It's a little trippy in places, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay. That might be all I had.
I tell you, do you remember the Fandango commercials?
Yeah.
The puppets, the paper bag puppets?
Yeah.
At one point, everybody turns into a paper bag puppet. And it looks just like those characters.
So wait till you have some weed, then watch this film.
Yes.
Not that I inhale, but, in theory, that's what you would do.
Yes.
What about a movie called The Isle? Have you guys seen that?
Like AI or I?
ISLE,
Oh.
as in island. Yeah, I don't know. Everything else I've mentioned has 4 stars at least, I think, on Amazon, but this one has 3 stars.
I kind of like the idea of the AI one. Hang on, I'm going to write that down. The Isle.
You got to Tucker.
Someone should write that.
Yeah.
I've been avoiding a movie about a group of people who are trapped on a bed.
Go on.
Anybody who gets off dies.
The floor is lava, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, did you play that game with your sons when they were little?
Everybody plays that game.
Thought I was so unique.
Everybody who is not a monster plays that game with their kids.
And now it's a show on Amazon, right?
Yeah. And they're using real lava. It's horrifying.
What? These people stole my idea. Langan, you stole my idea before I had it.
John, did you ever watch New Girl?
I don't think I've even heard of it.
You mean that's the sitcom?
Sitcom.
Oh.
I know
I
of it,
watched
but I did not
I
watch
watched a few episodes.
Why would I do that to myself?
They play a game called True American, which is a drinking game. But in the process, you have to jump from piece of furniture to piece of furniture because the floor is lava.
Nice. Yeah, that's. I'm sure alcohol would make that game so much safer.
Yes.
Okay, wait. I'm still trying to figure out how you're going to make a story, The Isle, AI, scary. It's like you are.
John can do it. As much shit as I give him, Langan is a hell of a.
No, now you see the thing now is
it's baking spices and condiments, and you can't leave that aisle.
What, John?
Keep going, Matt. Yeah, no, you're writing the story for me.
You're providing the plot for him.
No, you try to escape by reaching through the aisle, and something reaches back, reaching through the wall.
No, and you know who's reaching back is you.
Ooh,
because that's the scariest thing there is, right?
A few years ago at ReaderCon, I did this like a coffee clatch kind of thing, you know, and I was just talking about, you know, about the point in my life where like, if people like, they'll send you ideas for anthologies, and sometimes like your first thought is, oh my God, that's terrible, but then your second thought is, but wait a minute, you know, like suppose I had to, you know, could I do this, you know? And so the two things that came out of that were a story about a were shark and a story about a connection between country music and Cthulhu. And I just drew them out to be ridiculous ideas. You know, I was like, look how silly that is. But then, you know, I started to spitball around, and I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to write both of these. So The Isle will now be part of that group of terrible stories.
And you got to write them fast in the limited amount of time you have left.
John, you have to finish them before we can call them terrible.
Wow. No, I don't think so. I think you can do your, you know, Pete's already got them written. Pete's like, here we go.
Well, I'm confused because Matt automatically went to a grocery store aisle.
I was thinking movie
theater.
I was thinking AI. I thought you said AI.
Yeah,
right. Well, like AISLE, right?
Well, maybe the AI is what made the aisle.
Right. That's like one of those.
You right to the aisle.
Classic science fiction,
stunning commentary that people tune in for.
So it's a virtual island in the shape of an
aisle.
Yeah.
An aisle in a church, maybe.
Oh yes.
What church? The Church of Cthulhu? No.
Oh, wait, no. See, if you're stuck there, then you're going to be thinking like,
I believe you mean
are there communion wafers you can eat? Because then you could survive. See,
you know, who says it's a Christian church?
It could be the Starry Wisdom sect.
Exactly.
Right?
They had no communion there. That was just there was a lot of hymn singing.
So actually, Matt, I really like this because I can see myself going down the aisle in a grocery store in Innsmouth.
But yeah, see, that's
right.
The thing.
What would they have there? Yeah.
They would have. They would have
spices.
Ginger cookies. They'd have a box of sardines and crackers or something like that.
But as you go down the aisle, things just get progressively weirder.
Right, and at the end of the aisle is like the seafood case or something like that,
which is huge.
No,
it's the frozen food section. Oh, wait till you see what's in the.
Well, the
seafood section is empty because like that's our buddies. We're not going to eat them. So, but like the butcher shop, that's
what full. Do you think the deep ones eat? They eat, you know.
But isn't this movie already been made? Isn't it Sausage Party?
Yeah, I think Sausage
Party. I am ashamed to say I have seen Sausage Party.
Pete said I should watch it. I'm like, no.
Because I thought to myself, how bad could this? Oh my God, that was.
He said it was Lovecraftian. I was like, get out of here.
Well, he means that it will reduce you to a state of gibbering madness. That's what he means.
Yeah, that is kind of Lovecraftian.
They literally have to go through the mountains of madness to find the book.
No, when you said grocery aisle, you know, one of the things in all seriousness made me think of stories that begin in such ordinary, banal settings and then suddenly turn horrific.
Like The Mist?
Yeah, for example.
In grocery store aisles?
Yeah. Or, you know, any kind of normal setting,
He took the easy way out. He had aisles. This would just be aisle.
Right.
Yeah.
One aisle, yeah.
Now, if King was a better writer, it would have just been a CVS or something, you know, or maybe
there's
a gas
CVS
station.
in it, too.
There's a CVS in it.
There's a CVS. Stop making fun of Stephen King, you heretic.
Yeah, I'm not making fun of Stephen King.
Oh, my God. Why are you going to draw down his wrath upon us?
There are different characters in each aisle.
There are different health codes in each aisle?
Cultures.
Oh, cultures in each aisle, like bacterial cultures?
No, like tribal cultures.
Like tribal cultures, built around the different things that are on display in each aisle.
Yes.
So it's like here's like the Campbell soup people.
Yeah,
John, I'll have to ask Paul, but I'm kind of under the assumption that Stephen King doesn't listen to the show or watch the show. So
he will now. He knows. He knows. He looks up.
Wait,
Paul
what the hell,
Black, by
Mike?
the way.
You told the whole reason I've been doing this is you told me Stephen King was watching.
That's right, and he was supposed to. Yeah, I mean,
he is, Matt. You can continue, and you're.
Oh no.
Yeah, he is.
Once you tried to tell me there wasn't a Santa Claus either.
I was going to say it's the same thing as the Santa Claus thing, you know.
God. My daughter is turning 11 tomorrow, and she's trying to figure out whether or not Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, and the Tooth Fairy are real.
Well, with Santa and the Easter Bunny, you have evidence. You have eggs. You have presents appearing underneath the tree. I mean,
you've got money in the case of the Tooth Fairy, and where does your tooth go?
Good point.
Yeah. Tell her one of them is not real, but you can't
Can
tell
you
her
imagine
which
though,
one.
like if the Tooth Fairy has all these teeth, what are they doing with it?
Oh, have you not seen Hogfather?
Yeah, and that one show where the monster is made of
Channel
teeth.
Zero, where the
Channel Zero
is covered in teeth.
Yeah.
Or wasn't it Hellboy 2, where the
tooth fairies are tiny? Yeah.
And they ate everybody.
Yeah, wasn't the monster or whatever it was? I forget. In Channel Zero, season 1, man, really freaky looking. Made of either was wearing teeth or had teeth as an exterior or something.
Yeah.
Which, of course, immediately your mind, it begs the question, where did the teeth come from? So,
has anybody else read Robert Dunbar's Santa Steps Out?
No,
I'm proud to say
I know the one.
not.
I know the one you mean. Yeah, but
okay.
Is it good?
I'm not old enough to read it.
I know. Oh, I think you've talked about this before. I know the plot. I don't even have to read it. So,
no.
Santa cheats on his wife, right?
Yes.
In graphic sexual terms.
Yes.
See, I don't need to read that.
Come on. He wouldn't cheat on Mrs. Claus. This is a bullshit premise.
Yeah. Well,
I don't even want to go there. I don't. It's like Sausage Factory or whatever.
It's like okay, you know why she's looking around, because Santa only comes once a year. I know.
Oh my God, man.
Come on.
Oh my God! Right, you went there.
That's horrible.
Ladies and gentlemen, please address your letters to Dr. Matthew Carpenter.
And then it's down a chimney. I mean, come on.
Oh my God!
And there's sugar and sweets and cookies.
All right, let's change the subject.
Perfect.
Wow!
I didn't start this.
If Stephen King,
you took it up to the next level.
He's watching now.
No, he won't be now.
Did anybody watch the full season of Penny Dreadful City of Angels?
I have not.
I loved it all the way to the end. I just felt like it just went nowhere at the end. So, I don't know. I think Rick's watching it, but he couldn't make it today, and neither could Ben.
I know what Matt Carpenter was thinking. That's what bothers me, is when you said that, I knew exactly what he was thinking.
What?
Well, when you said, I loved it all the way to the end, after his Mrs. Claus remarks. Oh my God.
Jesus. Speaking of things that scare Matt Carpenter, can anyone see this little...
that evil head doll?
Put myself on the screen here. There we go, for the viewers. So right before the show, Matt's like, what is that freaky looking doll back there? And
I'd much rather listen to German Godzilla, thank you.
I was like, you mean Batman? He goes, no, next to Batman. And I'm like, that's a fucking emoji, Matt, that's sleeping.
No, it's a doll head.
No,
it's as scary as Trilogy of Terror.
Here we go. That's what it is. I have another one, but he's smiling. I give that one to Logan.
He's been horribly mutilated. What did you do to his head?
That's like a double Harry Potter.
Yeah.
He looks like a Langolier.
Well, oh yeah, true. Well, I'm pretty sick, and hopefully it's just a flu or something. I'll find out tomorrow. But so I was mentioning Matt's a doctor, by the way, believe it or not. And sorry, Matt, I had to.
I don't know, man. You would not want him as your proctologist. I mean, no offense. I'm just saying. I don't see that working.
Moon River. Yeah. Anyway, Name that movie, John.
No.
Fletch.
No.
Fletch.
No. You know,
I'm thinking about Fletch.
I'm sure you are.
That's not where that movie. That's not where that song came from.
But that's how I know it. And if any Philistine out there who has not watched Fletch should do so immediately. Because it's the best movie ever made, along with a few other best movies ever made.
Well, it was back when Chevy Chase could act. I guess he can always kind of act, but I mean, when he had a career.
You remember the Saturday Night Live where he spills popcorn all over Trump? Comes down from the back. That's probably on YouTube somewhere.
But what about? It's like Audrey Hepburn and Breakfast at Tiffany's. That's Moon River. I mean, come on.
Well, it's always going to be Chevy Chase for me and Fletch. So.
Audrey Hepburn or Chevy Chase. That the axes upon which the Lovecraft eZine is constructed.
That and Batman and Lord of the Rings. No, so I was talking over my symptoms with Matt, and he said basically you need to cancel the show and go to the ER, which I didn't do. No, he didn't say that. But he's like, geez, how did you get on the hex thing? Like you just said, somebody hexed me, and that's what the doll was. Is in the last Witch in Florida in Emma's book, she puts a flamingo in their yard when she hexes
That's
them.
right.
That's
she
awesome.
keeps a whole shed or something full of them.
Yeah, she buys them in bulk, online or something.
The funny thing is, I haven't seen a flamingo in anybody's yard in Florida in probably 5 years.
Yeah, well, though these people will really know that they've been hexed then, I guess. But yeah, I was like, who thinks this shit up? A flamingo? That's great. So now I've been hexed, apparently, by an emoji.
By a Langolier.
Okay, that too. Or either. Anything else, guys, before we go?
Yeah, I'm listening to this audiobook. So there's this great, it's called Autobiography of a Werewolf Hunter by Brian P. Easton. And I know Ben Handelman, I got him into it, and he loves it as well. But there's a prequel now called The Winter Fox Journals by the same narrator from the audiobooks for this trilogy. And it is excellent. And is it as much fun as Wolf Hunt? It is, but brutal, more brutal than, yes. You're talking about the one by Jeff Strand?
Yeah.
I
really liked it. I loved Wolf Hunt.
I think Biography of a Werewolf Hunter, that series, plus the Winter Fox Journals, much more brutal. And as a lot of you know, I'm kind of, at least in literature and horror, I'm underwhelmed by human evil. I'm like, oh, got it. Hannibal Lecter is nothing to me, right? I want something supernatural. That's what I'm going to be afraid of. Well, this series makes you kind of second guess that. And the werewolves, as bad as they are not as badass or scary as the protagonist, who is just
so a guy who eats people and wears their face to escape from prison. That doesn't bother you in any.
Not next to a werewolf, no, because I could put a 45 bullet in that dude's head and end this.
He's not scary. A good point.
He's not scary. He's a man.
Yeah.
I could kick him in the balls, and that head would.
That's what you'd be saying all up until the time till he fried up your liver.
No. No, I don't think he would get that close.
I think I'll eat your heart first. That was in the prequel. I think I'll eat your heart first because I really like you as a friend. I'm currently reading, among other things, rereading actually, because I read it when it first came out, I think in 2007, The Somnambulist by Jonathan Barnes.
I never read that one. I know that, but I mean, I've never read it. How is it? Well, you're rereading it. I guess it's good. It's
really fantastic, and I'm not saying it's horror, but it's got so many influences in it that it's set in England in 1901, I think, right after a few months after Queen Victoria dies, and but it's weird, good weird. So I really don't know how to explain it without spoiling it. But if you look it up and buy it, I think most people would be happy with it. I'm not saying it's Lovecraft, I'm not even saying it's horror. I'm just saying if you like this kind of stuff, you'll probably like that too. So, anything else, guys?
I got to remind you that there is a prize. for this Harry O. Morris portfolio, send an email to ezineprizes@gmail.com and put Morris in the subject heading. You could win.
You could be the lucky winner. Before I go, time for a quick break for our sponsors. I've got a Patreon. If you're watching or listening and don't know, what is that, Pete?
It's my beer bottle upside down.
I don't.
It's our quick.
You only drink one beer the entire show?
Okay,
I'm a little disappointed.
I'm a little, yeah.
Honestly,
none of us saw the IV that he had plugged into his arm, so give him a break.
No, it's not an IV. Off screen, it's one of those beer hats that he's got to the side.
So, I've been on vacation for the last 9 days.
You've been on vacation from drinking?
No. And today, in celebration, Mandy made a 4-liter pitcher of sangria.
4 liters?
4 liters.
Wait, she's celebrating the 9 days or the fact that you're on vacation?
No, the fact he's going back to work. She's like, woo!
Yeah. Now,
do you guys celebrate like your month and a half anniversary and all that stuff too?
Okay, so last week was our 13th anniversary.
Congratulations.
July 13th.
Maybe this one will actually stick with you all the way to death in old age.
Well, we both discussed this before we got married. And
you do know, before you continue, you do know she's too good for you.
Yeah.
All right, go on.
But we both agreed that this was going to be each of our last marriage, and it was going to be till death do we part. The only way out was death.
That's either
that doesn't necessarily mean you're dying of old age, right?
Wow.
That's either beautifully romantic or you're going to be buried in the backyard soon.
Yeah, check her search history. It's like how to disguise antifreeze and sangria. I mean,
don't go out in the open sea fishing with her, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. Or I wouldn't even I would stay away from the water in general. Don't take a bath.
So this is Rich.
Take a bath.
When we were dating, she went fishing with me several times.
Well, there's some trust there.
But now that the kids have been born, she's like, oh no, both of us can't be on the water at the same time.
My wife does that.
Why not?
Because if they both die, that's a
the
problem.
The kids are orphans, right?
Yeah.
So
and one of them
Titanic happens. At least one's got to be left on shore to fix things. Right?
I think this
you are laughing at this, but I'm just telling you that's the way it works when you're married.
Exactly, car accidents, everything. Daniel and I talked about this too. Because what you don't want is for both the Rollick spouses to die together, and then his 11-year-old daughter grows up to be Batwoman, and so with a thirst for vengeance for the open sea. So.
She'll be like Caligula. She'll be
attacking.
Attacking the sea like Caligula.
Now, so on top of it, my wife's mother, my mother-in-law, used to work for the same agency that I worked for, so she knows exactly how much I'm worth dead.
And she doesn't like you either.
So it's more than one person who's out for you, Pete.
Oh yeah.
Wow, I see it. It's like a terrible noir film, I just see it, that the mother-in-law is like, come fishing with me, son-in-law. Let's bury the hatchet. Oh, and she buries the hatchet, all right.
You know what you need, Pete? You need the Hooters to come back and be your bodyguard.
Who?
Oh, that's right.
Remember Pete said his mom, the Hooters were her bodyguards, and
those guys who did all you zombies and
the band from the 80s.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So my mother worked for a residential school for emotionally disturbed kids.
And she wants to kill you too?
No, that was where Pete went to school. Let him finish the story.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Anyway, on several occasions my mom got stabbed by students.
Yeah.
With plastic forks and knives.
Oh yeah.
But still, so she ended up getting bodyguards, and 2 of her bodyguards were actually would go on to become members of Hooters. So
well, I'm glad it was before the band and not after the band, because that would be a
Oh, I get it now. You guys aren't talking about the restaurant.
No, we're not talking about the restaurant.
We're talking
Mike
about
finally figures this out.
Kidding.
Mike's like, wait a minute. I've been in Hooters many times and they never sang.
The band, the Hooters played my senior prom.
Holy!
Wow.
Wow.
Pete, that story, there's nothing that's going to beat that story. My mom's bodyguards were in the Hooters.
They.
Oh, I don't
they
know.
went on
I
to
stole a
be-
car to watch Reanimator might beat it.
Yeah, you haven't heard that story, but I'll tell
No,
that.
I have not heard that one either.
we've heard it a lot.
We've
It's
heard
okay.
it. Yeah. We've heard it. Stop right there.
Like 8 times.
And it's not like
but
I
I'm not
bring it up
counting.
every other show or anything either.
No.
It is interesting, Pete. You can tell Rich later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just, gosh, look at the time.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, though, just to get back to this really quickly, I'm pretty sure I told Matt that this is not a hex. And I
Yes,
know
it is.
Well, I know it's not because I got it in the mail from a random fan. I don't know who. There's no return address or anything, but you know,
From Florida with a flamingo in the yard.
That's why he wears his hair swept over like that. Is because so you can't see the
have a return
Z's.
address in Salem. That's where it was. Salem.
Yeah.
Hell, Florida.
So someone decided I don't like that show. It's got to be over.
Oh, so John, you guys were talking. You and Emma were talking about Haverhill and ReaderCon earlier.
Yeah.
We actually have a small town.
Talk quickly. We're boring, John.
Not far from here, that was settled by people from that town. But, you know, we're Floridians, so we don't pronounce it Haverhill, we pronounce it Haverhill.
I don't even know how it's like in all seriousness, I would say something like Haverhill or something like that, but
Right.
it's way up, on the New Hampshire border, and they've got this weird like or something. I don't know.
And every time I say Haverhill, somebody from New England beats the shit out of me. So
That's not why
tomato.
they're beating you up.
Oh.
There are other reasons for that.
okay.
That's true.
They're members
So-
of the Hooters. They're like, ugh!
We hated your mother.
They went on to be the backing band for Joan Osborne, as I recall. They played on at least her first album.
Did
They
they?
produced.
Really?
They produced and played on her first. God, what was it called? The big one.
Is that what if God was one of us?
Yeah,
that one?
exactly. And if you think about it, if you listen to hear in your mind for a minute the sound of "What If God Was One of Us," and you're like, "Oh my God, that is the Hooters." Like even if you didn't like. So
Yeah.
I'm going to be listening to the Hooters tonight, Pete, thanks to you.
I'm sorry.
all you zombies.
And we danced.
That was actually, I went and saw a show in Philadelphia. I think it was like 1980, something like that. It might have been 81. It was
18 what?
the lead bands were like the Hooters, the Clash,
Oh,
Carlos Santana, and the big band was the Who.
Wow. Oh, wow.
It was a pretty good show.
Well, the Who, that would have been one of their farewell performances, right?
One of their-
first farewell.
One of their very first farewell tours.
Right.
Mhm.
John Entwistle was still alive.
Yeah, I took my son to see Ozzy Osbourne a couple of years ago, and it was the No More Tours tour part 2.
I took my son last year for his first concert to see Cheap Trick. And
Okay.
he loved it. They're a great live band.
Ozzy's terrific
yes.
live. I thoroughly recommend him. He loves everybody.
Who?
Ozzy.
Oh,
Ozzy.
Ozzy. Yeah.
Ozzy, yeah. No,
Yeah,
not
I've
that.
heard
The
of
Who
Ozzy.
hate
I
everything.
just
The Who
didn't
are like,
know
they'll jump down in the crowd and they'll mess you up. Yeah.
Not now,
every
they're
time-
like in their
but-
80s or something.
Matt, every time
Well,
somebody
I'm not saying
says-
you couldn't kick the cane away, but still.
Every time somebody says, "Oh, you zombies," my brain doesn't flip to music; it flips to the Heinlein story.
Mine always flips to music, to the Hooters.
Yeah, mine goes to the Hooters, then to Heinlein.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to rename this show, Hooters and Heinlein.
Okay, so let's see. John and Rich are always thinking about Hooters. Okay, got it.
The band.
Oh,
I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for the last 10
You are,
minutes.
and you should.
good.
You absolutely should.
you have
Look what you-
panelists like this on. What do you expect?
I hope you're proud of yourself.
It is
You know
my.
what, you
it
ought
really
to
does
shave
come,
your
the buck
head.
does stop here. It's my
You
fault.
You need to shave your head in repentance.
He can't, because if he did that, we'd see the Z's carved into his head.
You know what?
There'd
I
be
should.
no
I
more
should like
flowing.
do. I should like do another level on the Patreon that's ridiculously high and say, if I get 5 people to do this, I will shave my head on camera.
Well,
That's
you've got
nice.
one because I'll do it.
Where are you going to find 5 people willing to give you $10? I mean, come on.
Well, surprisingly, Surprisingly,
I'll sign up
Patreon,
5 different times under a different name just to make you shave your head off. And it has to be done on camera.
I got to have the
fight.
money in
What,
hand
Mike?
first. I'm going to have to tell you.
I will take that bet.
Well, Pete, you've already made a mohawk.
Yeah.
Well, surprisingly, John, I do have. I think I just hit the 100 mark on Patreons, which doesn't mean I'm rolling in dough. It just means I can.
Well, you know,
partly
at
pay the
25 cents a pop. I mean, come on.
Exactly. So you do get extra stuff with that. So some pretty cool stuff. Just Google Lovecraft eZine Patreon, should work. And
You
then
get to be on here.
that's right. And at one level, and actually, you know, the shaving my head thing would be good for the next thing I was going to mention. PayPal.me/Lovecraft eZine, where you can. It's so easy for you to give money from out of your bank account into my bank account. It's going to blow you away. So PayPal.me/Lovecraft eZine, and you know, all this is just to say that Lovecraft eZine does a lot of things, and I'm married to a teacher, and I can't hold down a job for various reasons.
Not until the restraining orders expire, anyway. And people,
Exactly.
there were a lot of them. Okay.
In addition,
That's right.
in addition to that, there are physical reasons as well.
But your hair, you're too hippie-ish. You look like a hippie. You've got to look like a 1960s crew cut. You work at NASA with the big black glasses.
I was
You
actually
look like what's his name's character in Falling Down.
no, I was actually thinking of all the way to the skin. You know, I'll use PayPal to do that because that's a one-time. You know, I'll give them $100 to see this ridiculousness happen type thing. You know,
Yeah.
if I reach this amount, and it's
Get ready. We all get to see you buzz-headed very
well, I
soon.
hate to burst your bubble. I'm not saying I reach $100. Okay.
He's saying $105. Don't you forget it.
That's right. So anyway, all kidding aside, guys, thank you so much for being here every week and making the show actually a quality.
No one
level.
else will have us.
I was going to say, we have a choice?
Not really. Not now. You've committed. And now you all have too many fans. They'll be like, where'd Bunting go? Where'd Carpenter go? You know, Rollick, Langan. What did you do to piss them off?
No, they would be like, thank God. It's like an oasis of calm and rational thought now.
Why isn't Langan writing on a Sunday instead of being on this show? God
I'm
damn
even
it.
talking to Ellen Datlow again.
Yeah.
And let's see Godzilla before we leave again.
Oh, yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
Godzilla?
That's German Godzilla, and he is here to say Auf Wiedersehen to everyone. It has been a lovely time listening to these 4 pasty white men ramble on about things of which they know not.
And Pete,
Oh,
where's
yeah.
your
That
Indian
kinda
sounding
sums it up.
monster?
Our new slogan. Yeah. Our new.
I
that's our
don't
new
know
slogan.
where he go.
Where'd you go with your Indian monster?
I don't know where he went.
Yeah, if there's 5 white men agree on something, surely you're going to go buy it. Yeah, that's exactly the endorsement that Emma Gibbon needs.
Yeah, so Laird Barron's going to be on next week. Is German
Oh, my
Godzilla
God.
coming out or for Laird?
Wait, why would German?
Wait.
German Godzilla
I didn't even know.
go?
I didn't even know German Godzilla was in the closet. What the hell?
What the hell are you talking about?
What closet
You
could
said he was
hold
going to come
German-
out.
Oh, for God's sake!
What closet could hold German
Look,
Godzilla?
not that there's anything wrong with Godzilla being gay.
No, it's just.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I saw
Mr.
that
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld
Yeah.
episode. Yeah. So I guess before we go, well, you German Godzilla for Laird, or will he just like belt you? if
Oh,
you
well,
show up?
absolutely. But you know he'll be here for Laird. I think you should get Michael Sisko on here to do his Werner Herzog as well.
Ooh, let's
And then he could be Herzog. He could do his Herzog voice interviewing Laird.
I'd pay for that.
That's a Patreon special.
That is now that there's a reward level
Yep.
there. Yeah, and as well as German Godzilla interviewing Laird.
Along with your Buzz haircut.
Yeah, I'm suddenly finding that people don't find that as tempting as the. previous
Oh,
two.
don't underestimate yourself. Don't underestimate.
That's our job.
We are really grateful that you all tuned in, and we're sorry you had to listen to the last 45 minutes, but that's how it goes.
Yeah. Anyway,
Listen, people, you knew what you were getting into when you tuned in for this, okay? None of your nonsense.
yeah.
You knew what you were getting into. You bought your tickets.
If
I
you don't
said,
like it, don't watch it.
let him die.
So Laird Barron next week, the week the Sunday following, F. Paul Wilson, then S.B. Muskowski, then the 16th, Matthew Bartlett, and then some guy named John Langan on the 23rd. We're going to convert him from
By that time, the summer will be over.
Guest. So, yeah. All right. Well, anyway, seriously, thanks, guys, for being here. And thanks, everyone, for watching and listening, and Patreon or PayPal, whatever you do. And we will see you next week.
See you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.